The topic that I chose for our reflection tonight, I think, is at the core of some of the fundamental aspects of life of humanity. First of all, relationships are at the core of every life. We all have relationships. We have relationships with ourselves, with our parents, with our children, with our spouses, with our friends, with our enemies, with the nature, with realms above that we don't understand, with God. We all have manifold relationships, and most of the time our preoccupation in life is about our relationships. So it is essential that we understand the whole genesis, the foundation, the source of relationships. What is relationship? How it evolves? What's a good relationship? What's a bad relationship? And how we can improve relationships. But as you notice, I put one type of relationship first in the title of the talk: God, humanity, and essential relationships. And the reason that I chose that title is because in our time, from my perspective, the most challenging issue before humanity is the relationship that we have with God. And if you think of it, the relationship of humanity with God right now is very confused. First of all, there are millions who don't believe in God. They are atheists and say there is no God. And there are millions who believe in God, but in a very exclusive manner. Our God. And our God is better than your God. And then there are people who believe in gods that are angry and hateful and frightening. And then there are those who believe in gods that are merciful and compassionate. And majority believe in gods that are a combination of all of them. So there is a confusion. Is there a God? Isn't there a God? And if there is, what kind of a God? And how they affect our relationships. So what I thought I would do, I share with you my understanding of some of the concepts in the Baha'i faith about relationships. And they are therefore from a perspective of a Baha'i. And then we will discuss it and put it in a broader focus. So that we will start from there. Before I do that, I'm reminded of a lesson I was taught when I was little, probably 4 or 5 years old, 6 years old, in a little village that we were living in the middle of the desert. At night, we sleep in the rooftops. houses and flat rooftops, and you would go and sleep on the rooftop. And the sky is nothing like you see here. The sky is unbelievably big and unbelievably the sky is unbelievably bright. The stars are many more than you see here, because in the desert there is very little humidity and there is little pollution, and therefore the sky, the heavens are magnificent. So when you lie at night and look at the skies, which are called heavens, you wonder about heavens. So I remember I asked a man that I had, where is God? And she said, the God is in the heaven. Where is heaven? I said, heaven is way out there. And I said, why way out there? And she said, in the old times, when people were pure and good, heavens were very low. You could actually touch it. You can reach and touch the heaven. And you can touch it. But because people did bad things and wrong things and cruel things, heavens gradually began to go further and further and further. So now they are far away. You cannot reach them anymore. You just can't look at them. And I thought, isn't that interesting? Because our heavens are very far from us nowadays. Right? We all wonder, where is God? What is happening? Why so much calamity in this world? Natural calamities, human-made calamities. All of these have to make us ponder and reflect and think, because they shape our relationships, and our relationships shape our lives and what we do. And therefore it is important to reflect on this. Now, there is a curious definition of religion and science in the Baha'i writings. One of the major figures of the Baha'i faith is Abdul Baha. Abdul Baha was a prisoner most of his life, from childhood until he was in the 50s. And he then was freed from prison and exile in the Ottoman Empire, part of Ottoman Empire, which is now Israel. And when he was released from prison, he actually embarked on a journey to the West. He went to Europe and the United States and Canada. And he gave many talks. And actually, this year and next year, we are celebrating the anniversary, 100th anniversary of his sojourn, his trip to the West. So his writings are remarkable and filled with insights about some of these issues that we are talking about. So he defines religion as essential relationships between realities of things. He says that everything has a reality. Every individual, everything in this universe has an inner reality. And the realities of all things have some fundamental, essential relationships. And if that relationship is severed, then distraction takes place. And he says that the fundamental purpose of religion to enunciate those realities, those facts, those laws that govern the relationships of people together, therefore of ways that people think and feel and relate and decide. Religion basically comes to describe the essential relationships between people and between things. He then says science is the essential relationship between realities of things. So he gives exactly the same definition to science and to religion. Religion and science both are engaged in trying to understand the essential relationships between realities of things. So when we think of it that way, in this simple definition, essential relationship between realities of things, because we do not understand, we cannot understand reality of anything, the inner reality of anything we cannot understand. We don't know the reality of anything. We don't know the reality of an atom or subatomic particles, or anything. Today there was news that scientists have claimed that they have now discovered a new particle that moves faster than light, which goes contrary to the theory of relativity of Einstein, which until today we believe is impossible for anything to go faster than light. And they said, if now this is proven, everything that we know has to change. In the physics and in the world and everything that we understand the way the world works has to change. Why? Because we are understanding more about the relationships. We don't understand the essence of anything, we understand the relationships. Okay. So, what is the relationship? Well, relationship has several components. First, in order to have a relationship, you have to have attraction. Things to have to become attracted to each other in order to have relationships. Human beings have to be attracted to each other to have a right relationship. If you have a positive relationship, you are attracted. If you have negative relationship, then you go away from each other. But the force here is a force of attraction. And of course, the force of attraction is most sublime and essential way is the force of unity, which I have spoken a number of times in these talks that we have had. Unity is that force that brings diverse things together through the power of attraction and creates something new. So, for example, the different components of our body comes together and you're alive and function. Two people get attracted to each other and get married. They become husband and wife, create a family, create marriage, create family, they bring forth children. All of these processes take place in the context of attraction and unity. Now, the force of unity is love. You cannot have unity without learning about love. And love, what is the first source of love? That's the fundamental question we have to understand. From a Baha'i perspective, the source of love, the very power of love, comes from our relationship with God. Because it is God that creates us. Just reflect on love of God to humanity. God has created us, has given us the capacities that we have provided this whole universe for us in order to live in it and to wonder about it, has provided everything that is necessary for us to stay alive, and has made sure that all these essential elements for our life always will be present and will be there. That's the greatest source of love. Okay. But humanity's relationship with God, with respect to love, has been very problematic. Because we as human beings are evolving, we are maturing, both as individuals and as societies of people. And therefore, throughout history, humanity, for most of the history, has related to God in the same way that children relate to adults. And children relate to adults primarily through the process of dependency and attachment and expectation and fear. We depend on the powerful adults as children. We have expectations from the parents and adults. Expectations that they would be nice to us, that they would take care of us, that they would feed us, that they would do everything that they do for us. And we also get fearful about God, about adults as children, because we are afraid that they would not satisfy our needs, right? And then we, of course, become angry, because adults always do not satisfy our needs. The relationship of humanity with God has been similar. Throughout history, the clergy of different religions had basically told people that they should fear God. And it is not a normal fear, it is an abnormal fear. Fear of a God that will punish you, that if you do something wrong, you will go to hell, and then it's not a nice place. And, when they describe the hell, the way they describe the hell, very frightening. Yeah. Yeah, so nobody wants to get there. And so they put God's relationship with humanity in the context of reward and punishment. If you're good, you go to heaven. If you're bad, you go to hell. And they describe heaven and hell in very simplistic and childish ways. And that's the way humanity has been able to go throughout centuries. Then, gradually, we grew up and we got out of our childhood, or we are getting out of our childhood. And when we get out of our childhood, we enter our adolescence. And in the adolescent phase, we become rebellious. Right? Well, the fundamental characteristic of adolescent age is that we say, I know everything. I don't need anybody. I can do whatever I want to do. And actually, you're stupid. So that's the way adolescents thinks about adults, okay? And now we live in an age which humanity collectively is in age of adolescence. And age of adolescence is age of rebellion, of rejection. And is the age that we sever, break down the established relationships. And look at the humanity right now and to see, isn't that the adolescent world we live in right now everywhere? In North America, in established societies, look what is happening. The enormous degree of competition, the enormous degree of extremes that we live, extremes of wealth and poverty, of power and lack of power, of extreme levels of antagonism that we see in our world, the uprising that we see in the Arab world, for example, in the Islamic world, the wars that we see around the world. All of these are expressions of humanity in this adolescent age. And one of the most fundamental aspects of this adolescent age was rejection of God and religion. It started with the Enlightenment age. And one of the fundamental things that happened in the Enlightenment age in Europe and then in the rest of the world is that we rejected that childhood notion of religion and God. And thank God we did that. Because that was nonsense and superstitious. And therefore humanity said, adolescent humanity said, I do not believe in this kind of religion, superstitious religion, a religion that functions, makes the masses of humanity to function as children, fearful, obedient, not having the mind of their own. So we rejected that. And then we felt very good. We said, you know what? I don't think I need religion at all. We have science, and we have reason, and we have logic. This is the age of reason. This is the age of enlightenment. This is the age of science. So we don't need religion. And as far as I'm concerned, there is no God either. Because you cannot see him, you cannot touch him. And look, all of these bad things happen in the world. And if there was a God, a good God, a compassionate God, that you say there is, these bad things happen. And therefore humanity said, forget about religion, and then after a while, We published magazine, and the cover of magazine said God is dead, and that was finished. And with that pronouncement, God died within us. And what happened is that we entered a new age, the 20th century, which was, in terms of science, the most advanced age in human history. In terms of wealth, the wealthiest era in history of humanity. We have the science, we have the wealth, we have the power. We freed ourselves from colonial forces, from slavery, from all of those. We became free. We got rid of the sultans and emperors and the kings and all of those. So we were free. So we had freedom, we had knowledge, and we had money. And we had power in our hands. And what did we do? We created the most violent century in history. 20th century is called the most violent century in human history. In the First World War, millions of people were killed. Unbelievable number of cruelties. And where was the arena of the First World War? The heart of the scientific world. In the heart of the richest countries of the world. Right? Europe and North America and Japan. Okay. They were the ones that started the war and took it to every possible. And then, did we learn the lesson? The Second World War was more frightening than the First World War, not only in the intensity of its damage, but in the systematic manner that we went about to destroy each other. The Nazi camps of what they did to millions of people, the Stalin approach of killing, the Mao and Chinese state, the atrocities of Japanese, the atomic bomb. Just think about it. And this was the age in which humanity had said, we do not need religion. We have science, we have reason. We know what we're doing. We have the money, we have the power. And what did we do? We went through the most destructive era in our history. And First World War, Second World War, only two of the many wars that took place and still continuing. And now we have added to it terrorism. And we have brought, people want to go back to old religions. And they want to bring now the religious animosity of the past also into the forefront. So that's the way humanity has evolved and developed in the age of collective adolescence that we have. What has happened is that we severed our relationship with God, that essential relationship. And look what happened. Okay? Look what happened to human relationships. That's tragic, okay? That's what happened to human relationships. I saw one time in movie. It was an account of what happened in the concentration camps. one scene of it is in my boundaries. I cannot forget it. The scene is very interesting. It shows the person who was in charge of the concentration camp, the military person, Nazi German military person, it says. They show him at his home. And he has a wife and a child. And he absolutely adores his daughter. And he shows how tender and loving and kind he is for his child. Now, his home, here is the wall. This side is concentration camp. And this side is his home. So the only thing that separates them is the wall. So he gets out of his home and comes to the camp. And there are large little Jewish children. And he is ordering their mass execution. And the juxtaposition of here this loving parent, absolutely loving, and here this absolutely cruel person towards the same entities, little children, is the most romantic expression of how we human beings can go right or wrong in our relationships. And therefore we better understand what is at the core of relationships. So as I said, one area of requisites for a good relationship is those things that are summarized under the heading of love, unity, attraction. These are all together. Okay. How do you know you love somebody? You know you love somebody if you create unity with that person. You cannot, people will come and say, we love each other, but we're fighting all the time. Something wrong with that definition. Okay? Because love, the fruit of tree of love, is unity. Now, what is unity? What is the requirement for unity? Well, one of the fundamental requirements for unity is to understand the other person, the knowledge of the other person, and the knowledge of yourself. You cannot establish a truly unified relationship with another person if you do not know yourself and if you do not know the other person. Because if we don't know the other person, then what we will try to do is to make the other person to be like us, or to become the way we want them to be. We will try to change them, we try to alter them. Okay? So we don't love them. What we love is in a kind of them that is the way we want them to be. Like husbands and wives, say, I love you if you were this way and that way. That's a condition. You cannot do that. The love's fundamental requirement is that in order to create unity, is that they have to get to know the other person and know what is unique and sacred and beautiful about the other person. Otherwise, the relationship wouldn't go very far. Now, connected to the issue of knowing the other person and knowing ourselves is that because the purpose of knowledge is to find the truth about something, right? That's the purpose of knowledge. If we want to know something, we want to find some truth about that thing. Because of that, we have to be authentic. In other words, we shouldn't fool ourselves and say, well, I know myself. People, so many people, I always say that human capacity for self-delusion is infinite. Okay? We can fool ourselves all the time. We can say, now we know everything, But the fact is that the more we know about ourselves and about the other person, or about anything, the more we don't know. As the renowned philosopher, physician, poet, mathematician, wrote a poem. He said, now my knowledge has reached to a point that I know that I do not know. How little jealousy, ambition, how بدون همین که ناپاکی. He said, my knowledge reached to the point that I know most of the people know a little bit, then they think they know it. You see. And that, of course, is the most devastating in human relationships. How many times you have heard husbands and wives saying, you don't understand? How many times you have heard children saying to their parents, you don't understand, you don't know me, right? How many times? So one of the essential aspects of relationship is to develop that kind of communication that we are constantly learning more about ourselves and about each other. Constantly discovering new things about each other. New things. Because when you discover new things, everything that is new becomes beauty. That's it. You see, why people, after they have been married for a while, suddenly they start looking around? Because they don't any longer look to discover new things about the person that they know. So the person, because you don't discover new things about that person becomes ordinary, no longer is attractive. But if you constantly begin to get to know that person, you discover new realities. And then, if you do it to yourself also, discover new realities about yourself, you constantly make yourself more attractive. And the other person becomes more attractive. So one of the fundamental aspects of love relationship, of a good relationship, is love and is knowledge. The third component of a good relationship is that there has to be truth and truthfulness. In other words, you cannot establish relationship based on lies or based on that which is not there, on your imagination, or your just hope, or your fancy. There has to be a reality there, a truth there, an authenticity there. That's the reason that most human relationships collapse, because people are not truthful to each other. People lie to each other. Right? Most relationships collapse because people either lie to each other or individualized themselves, usually both. So it is essential that a good relationship be a relationship that is based on unity, based on knowledge, self-knowledge and knowledge of others, and constantly discovery, and be based on search for truth, discovery of new truths about ourselves. The fourth component is that relationships have to have a product. You just cannot have a relationship without an outcome, without an action, without something emerging out of relationship. Okay? Because a relationship has to be fruitful. Otherwise it becomes boring. Otherwise it becomes monotonous. Otherwise it becomes uncreative. And that's the reason that so many people live in lives that are parallel lives, like they train, okay? They never really meet and have a spark and have something coming out of the meeting. They just go their own lives, but they're in the same, in the same track, but they're different, separate from each other. So these issues that are essential to relationship, to know and to love and to act, these are the fundamental aspects of all relationships. Now, in the Baha'i faith, we are told that we are created. Actually, the purpose of our creation is to know God, to love God, and to understand the teachings of religion as description of the essential relationships that exist between people and realities of things. So the whole purpose of relationship between humanity and God becomes a totally different from what usually people have thought about this type of relationship. First of all, about few things. One is how you love God. The only way that we can love God is to loving His creation. Because God, in His essence, is far removed from us. And He doesn't need us. What He means by loving God is that we love humanity and we love the creation of God. So we have to see how we can love this world. And the manner in which we can love this world is to establish the bond of unity between us and everything else. Now, when we establish unity between us and people, then we have peace. And therefore, in the area of social activities, the ultimate goal of the Baha'i, every Baha'i, has to be establishing peace. We have to be servants of peace. We have to become peacemakers, peace creators, unifiers. That's what Baha'u'llah said that we have come to this world, to establish a civilization of peace. Also, we have to learn how to be peaceful with ourselves and with humans inside us. Because if we are not peaceful within ourselves and between each other, not only we destroy each other, we also destroy the environment. The environmental destruction is the outward reflection of the inner life of humanity. If we really want to save the environment, we have to change the inner lives and interpersonal lives of ourselves. Because the destruction of the environment is reflection of the destruction within us and between our relationships and within our relationships. That's what is happening. Baha'u'llah says, love me so I may love you. Now that's a very interesting statement. Because finally Baha'u'llah, God says to humanity, grow up. Love is not one-way street. Okay? Mature love has to be reciprocal. You love and you receive love. Not only give me, and then you say, okay, get, and then make them guilty and the whole thing. Okay? It's a different kind of relationship. And in the writings of the Baha'i faith also you come across about fear of God. It's that we should fear God. And here, this fear is different from the fear that we usually have been talking about. The fear here refers to fear of violating the spiritual laws. You see, the whole universe is established according to certain laws. And we should fear violating the laws of existence. For example, I fear electricity. And because I fear electricity, I wouldn't put my finger into the socket. If I go around saying, no, I'm an adult, I'm free, I can do anything what I want, nobody is going to tell me anything, and I just, put my finger in the socket, nevertheless, I will be shaking. Okay, if somebody lives on a 10th-story building and says, I don't believe in gravity, so he goes and walks out, what happens? The gravity says, welcome. Okay, because you cannot violate the laws of existence. You cannot violate. You have to fear the laws of existence. And there are two categories of laws: natural laws and spiritual laws. Physical laws and spiritual laws. So what are the spiritual laws? Law of unity. Anytime that you violate the law of unity, you create conflict, violence, war. These are all because of violation of the law of unity. Anytime that you violate the law of truth, what happens? It creates suspicion, mistrust, people not relating to each other, people backstabbing with each other because you're violating the law of truth. Right? These are the spiritual laws. And the spiritual laws, when they are violated, they have consequences, the same way that physical laws, when they are violated, they have consequences. So because of that, we should fear violation of the spiritual laws. This is, I describe some of these in my book here, Unity of Faith and Reason, as some, giving examples of different kinds of laws that are there, spiritual laws, that if we violate them, it will cause devastating outcome, and therefore we should fear violating those laws. Now, fear is different from phobia. Phobia is unhealthy fear of something, right? For example, if somebody has fear of fire, okay, it's fine. If somebody has a phobia of fire and say, I do not go into any house that has a fireplace, now you're wrong. Okay? Because phobia is an unhealthy, extreme, unreasonable fear of something. Okay? And that is unhealthy. Humanity today doesn't have fear of God. Humanity today has phobia of God. I call it theophobia. Fear of God. Phobia. Theophobia. Right? Humanity today suffers from theophobia. That's why many times when you're around the people, they say, okay, there are several things we don't talk about. Religion, God, money, you don't talk about a number of things. There is a fear of God. But if this fear, this phobia has become unhealthy, has gone to the extreme, it doesn't allow people to reflect and think and approach a phenomenon in a systematic manner. This is the malady, this is the disease of our time that has caused us totally sever our relationship with the source of all good, of all knowledge, all law, all wisdom, which is the Creator. And we have therefore misunderstood creation, we have misunderstood the purpose of life, we have misunderstood the laws of religion, we have misunderstood the laws of science, and we have put ourselves in a very desperate situation. So, in order to go back to the essential relationships, meaning our relationship with science, with religion, and therefore with creation, it's important that we begin to reflect somewhat differently from, about these issues than ordinarily we do. And hopefully this little description was of some thank you. Let's have a discussion. Yes, please.
I find that I'm sure other people have heard me say this at other devotionals, with a lot of relationships, the one thing, as much as we know love is important, subconsciously we have an ego that's programmed within us that is very hard. It's subconscious. We cannot control it. It kicks in and it somehow interferes in us being able to feel a relationship, build a relationship, or create unity. How does one work on removing or acknowledging or recognizing that ego in order to be able to build that relationship?
Yeah. But you see, the human relationships our relationship with ourselves has different stages of development. Okay? At the earliest stage of development, our love for ourselves shows in the context of selfishness. In other words, we are totally preoccupied with ourselves and concerned about ourselves and do not take into consideration anybody else or anything else. Okay? That's the ultimate of ego. Egoism and selfishness. Okay? Now, some people never grow out of that. They stay at that level. Okay? They become totally self, okay? And selfish and self-preoccupied. And they're only concerned about themselves. However, normally, naturally, when we evolve and develop and grow, gradually we begin to realize that in addition to ourselves, there are other people in this life that we want to establish some relationship with, and in other words, we begin to fall in love. And at the beginning, we are in love with ourselves, and that's the kind of love that is selfish. Then we begin gradually to expand the horizon of our relationships, and we begin to consider other people. And the process of falling in love is the process that you begin to prefer somebody else over yourself. Okay? That's the process. Most of the time, people fall in love at the beginning because that person makes you feel better. So even when you're loving the other person, it is for yourself. Okay? And if we stay at that level, then the relationship will improve and will grow and will evolve. Okay? But the next stage in that process is that you fall in love not for yourself, but because who the other person is. Okay? And that process of falling in love gradually helps you to become more detached from yourself. So this process then continues, and the next level that it goes is the level that you gradually begin to have less and less of self-preoccupation and more concern about that. And at the core of this process is the process of establishing our identity. Because in relationships, we try to establish who we are. Mm-hmm. We always consciously or subconsciously compare ourselves with other people. Am I taller? Am I shorter? Am I more beautiful? Am I this? Am I that? Am I that? We constantly compare. Okay. And this comparison, of course, is to establish our identity. But a sign of maturity is when a person gradually reaches to the level that says, okay, here I am. I am the person that I am. I have certain good qualities. I have certain qualities that I want to change. I want to improve in certain ways. And I do not need to use others for the purpose of my own self-knowledge and self-development and self-growth. When a person reaches that level, realizes that at the core of development of self is the ability to give the self, help the self to evolve, and then put it at the service of other people. Okay? This is a very difficult process. It is a lifelong process because self-sacrifice, meaning making ourselves sacred. Sacrifice means something, making something sacred. Okay? So if you want to sacrifice your ego and yourself and make it sacred, you have to put it at the service of others. If you don't put it at the service of others and still keep it focused on itself, then that self will be egoistic. The only time that you begin to remove the ego is when you give your qualities and capacities and abilities to the others. Okay. At the service of others, help of others. And so the more unsure we are of ourselves, the more selfish we are. Okay. The more unsure we are, the more we engage in backbiting. The more unsure we are of ourselves, we become involved in backstabbing or doing negative things or whatever. It is the process of development of self, and then sacrificing this self that we develop. So it's a difficult process. It's a never-ending process. We constantly go step by step by step. But the very awareness of that process is the first step. If I am aware that I'm selfish, that's the first step. And then, if I decide that I want to be less selfish, it's the next step. And then if I do something that actually is less selfish, it's the next step. And it just builds on itself. Does that answer?
Can I add something to that?
Of course.
I have thought about what you were asking me before. One of the things that I particularly find very helpful is reading writings. And Baha'i, Buddhist, Christian, any major religion gives you instructions and gives you things that you need to think and reflect. So reading is not enough, it doesn't go anywhere. But as in the Baha'i faith, you are supposed to have meditation. You cannot just have a reading and just for the sake of reading. You're supposed to think about it. And so being on your own, once a night or once a day or an hour, where you can actually reflect, how is it that these two lines here are relating to what I did in the morning? Okay, I was backbiting in the morning, and so how is it that I'm doing this or not doing that? So the awareness of that what you're doing is not what is on the writing, is what actually begins the process inside for you to start changing. And so we, I sometimes parents and teachers and people around us are not able to give us that. But the writings always do. And it is up to you to do it. And even when somebody tells you to do it, if you yourself are not into it, it's not going to happen. So it has to be from you and reflection.
Thank you, Bill, really, because the other part of that process is I don't know how many people usually make a habit of praying. But I have found throughout my life that what has made the most impact on my attempts at improving themselves or a little bit has been a combination of praying and meditation. What we're talking. And as you know, in the Baha'i faith, we have to pray in the morning and in the evening. And we have to read from the writings in the morning and in the evening. And there are certain prayers that we have to definitely say every day. And all of this, if you reflect on what you say in those prayers, and if you reflect on the configuration of those prayers, you will see all of them is about your relationships. About your relationship with yourself, your relationship with others, your relationship with God, your relationship with the next life, your relationship with this life. So prayer and meditation are like vitamins of the soul. And you know, the vitamins are funny because the vitamins, you don't feel the effect of them unless you don't take them. Right? This is the nature of vitamins. That if you don't take vitamins, you get sick. If you take ascorbic acid, vitamin C, you develop this skin. Okay? But if you take it, anything that's happened. Except that you are staying healthy. Okay? So prayers and meditation are the vitamins and minerals of the soul. Spiritual vitamins and minerals. If you don't take them, you get sick. You get conflicted, you get selfish, you get worried, you get angry, you get resentful, you lie, you do all kinds of things. Those are the signs that you need more vitamins. Okay, spiritual vitamins. Okay. Yes, please.
And if you allow yourself to approach it with an open mind, it makes a big difference than to just do the reading.
Oh, you have to have an open mind. You have to approach it with critical thinking.
Absolutely.
With critical mind. Because it is the power of the critical reflection that allows you to discover things about yourself and about realities and about others and so forth. There is nothing worse than blind, I don't know how to call it, blind approach to writings and scriptures and science or anything. And that's the reason that one of the fundamental teachings of the Baha'i faith is independent search for truth. And independent search for truth has to take place every day in our areas, when we pray, when we study the writings, when we read a scientific article, when we talk with somebody, when we hear news, we have to investigate it. So critical thinking and open mind is essential for, they are the spiritual activities. They are not only scientific activities, they are spiritual activities.